Before I show you the actual get ready with me, I need to actually finish the clothes. As always, I have left this till the last minute. I've got a black worked smock, which I made, I think I finished it earlier last year, maybe? I'm not sure. Anyway, I didn't completely finish it. As you may or may not be able to see, it needs adding a band to one of the cuffs. The other one's already got that, so I've got one of those to do. Then I need to starch a ruff. I'm going to need to make a decision. I might pick the lace off the bigger ruff, but I'm not quite sure yet. It might just be easier to use the other ruff, even though I think it's slightly too big for me. Then I'm going to need to make a decision about headwear. I'm going to need to pick the skirt off the bodice to save fabric. I'm using the same skirt for all of my 16th century stuff with different bodices on it. So this is the 1520 bodice, which won't really work in 1599, funnily enough. And finally, I've got the biggest job to do, which is the doublet bodice. I thought I was going to have to trim it as well, but having dug it out, it turns out that I've actually sewn all of the velvet trim onto it. It does look on the inside a little bit like it's been in some kind of knife fight. I think it was because it was going lumpy because the interlining had gone weird after I'd re-sewn bits of it. So I am just going to need to attach a collar to it and attach some sleeves to it and then make some sleeve wings. Chickens have decided that they like coming inside now, so I'm afraid there are going to be occasional invasions of chickens throughout this video. So the first thing I did, because it seemed to be the easiest thing, was to take the skirt of this bodice, and this is what it looks like when it's being worn. And so that was a relatively easy job. It was just a question of taking the scissors to it and unpicking the whole lot. The ends were more difficult to get at than most of the rest of it because I'd rather cleverly secured them more securely. I'd secured them more securely so that it wouldn't come off completely at the edges where there's more stress on it. And then, on account of the fact that there's nothing like procrastination, I decided to sort my work basket out because over the last year or so it's gradually accumulated various not exactly Tudor bits and pieces because, funnily enough, you can't really get away with a tape measure or a face mask in 1599. Then I made a start on the collar, which was just a strip of fabric that I folded in half, pinned together so that it was the right shape and size, making sure that it was the same width all the way along because the last collar I made was wonky and all over the place and not quite long enough for the neckline, so I had to piece an extra bit on and basically it was a mess. So this is a brand new collar that's going on, unlike the sleeves, which are the old sleeves. It took a while, but I think it's now fairly securely secured onto the neckline. It was a question with the trim of bringing the ribbon up over the top of the collar as well. I probably ought to add some extra ribbon around the collar going perpendicular to the current bits of ribbon, but not at the moment. And yes, chicken invaded chair because I don't know why. Luckily she didn't make a mess on it, but anyway, having stolen the chair back from the chicken, I made a start on sewing the collar together, which I have no idea what sort of stitch I used. I suppose it was a sort of stabby running back stitch depending on what I felt like at the time, which took ages, but hopefully this is the last time I'll need to sew a collar onto this doublet bodice. I have made and remade this doublet bodice multiple times over the last 3 years on account of the fact that I always leave it till the last minute, so it's never finished quite to the quality I would like it to be. And in a fit of procrastination, I then decided to attach the band to the end of the smock sleeve so that that was finished off because that seemed like a sensible thing to do. Having cut it out, I then decided to procrastinate further. Was this procrastinating from procrastinating? I don't know. Anyway, the embroidery that I'm doing, funnily enough, spools of thread are quite modern, and since Burnley and Trowbridge aren't shipping to England at the moment, yay, Brexit! I've made my own card thread winders instead, because I don't have the time to go looking elsewhere for wood or horn or bone thread winders. Then it was back to the sleeve cuff band thing that I finished sewing on. So again, that was done in much the same sort of stitching, having very accurately measured it out. sort of stabby, running-y backstitch thing that there's probably well, there might not be a technical term for it because I don't think it's a real stitch, but never mind. I'd finished sewing the collar onto the sleeves, so then the collar onto the sleeves? I'd finished sewing the collar onto the neckline, so then decided to make a start on the sleeves, so that was a case of cutting out some wings for them, which I've made up the pattern for because I've put the Tudor tailor down somewhere and can't remember where I've put it, so that's inconvenient. So I cut the wings out, I pinned them very accurately, and then started attaching the sleeves to the armholes. Having sewn the sleeves to the armholes with a whip stitch, because I used a proper stitch for attaching the sleeves to the armholes, I then hemmed the sleeve wings. I think I need to iron them as well because they've gone a bit lumpy. And then sort of folded the raw edge underneath on the straight bit and just attached that over the top of the sleeves. At some point during all of this I starched a ruff, and I think I starched my attifet, the heart there. I think I starched the heart-shaped coif as well, possibly, maybe, and decided just to go with the smaller ruff without the lace on so that I wouldn't have to worry about unpicking the lace on the big ruff. So there was the black worked smock to begin with. Over the top of that went the small bum roll that helps to prop up the big bum roll, and then red petticoat over the top because red is a terribly healthy colour in Tudor England. Oh, the bum rolls aren't particularly authentic fabric. I'm not sure they had pink gingham in Tudor times, but never mind. Over the top of that comes the kirtle, which you can see it's got the shiny fabric on the front where it'll be seen, and the boring blue, I think it's wool, but I'm not entirely sure because I picked it up for free somewhere, on the back where it won't be seen as easily. And then over the top comes the skirt, which has all these ruffles pinned into it and is like the kirtle in dire need of ironing. And then over that comes the doublet bodice, which has the ruff. I've sort of half attached to it with some tacking stitches and half not, so the rest of it can be pinned, but that will just hopefully save some time in the mornings. And after that comes the attifet, which goes on. Oh, there's a girdle goes over the top. And then to top it all off is the heart-shaped coif, or the attifet. There you have a Tudor not exactly lady in 1599. Not exactly lady because she's minor gentry. And I shall see you once more with a video at Kentwell, hopefully, next week.